cry in the stars. The triage tent stank of blood, disinfectant, and burnt metal. Dr. Elise Rowan wiped her hands on her bloodstained scrubs and leaned over the next patient. A Marine sergeant whose left arm was a shredded mess of bone and melted armor. The orbital skirmish had hit harder than anyone expected. Humans, scrambling for ground on the edges of colonized space, were now paying the price. Pressure bandage. Set the drone to monitor for arterial rupture. Elise barked, her voice steady. Her nurse, Patel, moved instantly, and the hum of many drones filled the air again. Another case, another life patched together with string and stubbornness. Elise barely glanced at the blinking red lights lining the edge of the tent. Incoming transmissions, all marked low priority. She should ignore them. There were protocols. Humans first. Always humans first. But something, instinct, maybe, or just the low gnawing guilt she never quite shook, made her tap on the alerts open. The screen flickered. Static. Then, a child's face filled the view. Wide black eyes, ridged forehead, skin a pale lavender gray. A Talari, one of the new species humanity had met just 2 years ago during the Concordat treaties. The child sobbed, words broken by fear and the auto-translation system struggling to keep up. Please heal my mom. She won't, the child hiccuped, voice cracking. Won't stop shaking. Please. Anyone. The image shook violently as the child tried to angle the communicator. Behind them, Elise glimpsed a prone adult figure, twitching uncontrollably on a bed of what looked like torn cloth and salvage parts. Every muscle spasmed. Tremors rippled violently down their limbs. The transmission cut to black. Rowan, Patel called from across the tent. We have 3 more wounded inbound. Prioritize the human evac. I'm going out, Elise said, pulling off her gloves. Patel stared at her. Out? Are you joking? There's a direct order to focus on human casualties only. That child isn't a soldier. She's just a kid, Elise snapped. If you want to file a report, be my guest. A beat of silence. Patel looked down and said nothing. Elise keyed her comms to the duty officer. Dispatch, this is Dr. Rowan. I'm requesting emergency clearance for field response outside Zone Alpha. Negative, Rowan, the comm crackled. Non-human cases are non-priority. Let their own kind deal with it. There's no one else, Elise said. Her hands clenched the edge of the table. Repeat, there is no one else. If I don't go, that woman dies. Another long pause. Proceed at your own risk, the voice said finally. No resources will be diverted to assist. Translation, you're on your own if you screw up. Fine. She was used to that. Elise tore off her blood-slick apron, grabbed her medkit, the real one, the one she kept stock for when the official channels failed, and sprinted for the tent exit. The landing pads outside were chaos. Dropships roaring in with the wounded, medics yelling, drones whirring. Elise ducked through the madness, heading for a battered skimmer bike chained at the edge of the lot. You're not seriously, a tech called after her. I'm already gone. Elise shot over her shoulder, firing up the engine. The coordinates from the transmission were rough but clear. An abandoned cargo wreck 2 clicks west of the base, in the shattered remains of a Talari merchant ship. Dangerous ground. Scavenger gangs, unexploded ordnance, unstable terrain. Elise leaned into the skimmer's throttle, wind howling around her. A human would have called her reckless. Foolish, maybe even suicidal. But Elise knew better. If the tables were turned, if it were her mother lying broken and shaking on some forgotten battlefield, she would want someone to come. Anyone. The outpost perimeter disappeared behind her, swallowed by smoke and craggy wreckage. Ahead, barely visible in the swirling dust, a small figure waved frantically. The Talari child. Elise gunned the engine one last time, heart pounding. The weight of the medkit slammed against her back with every bounce of the skimmer. In the distance, a flash of white and violet caught her eye. The unmistakable, shuddering form of the alien woman, spasming uncontrollably. She was out of time. Elise threw herself off the skimmer before it had even stopped moving. She hit the ground running, medkit snapping open in her hands. Don't worry, she said, crouching before the child, her voice calm even though her chest felt ready to burst. "I'm here now. We'll save her. I promise." The child's trembling hand gripped hers. In that shattered world of wreckage and ruin, a human and an alien child locked eyes, and hope flared anew. A mother's fight. The wreck was worse up close. Elise stepped carefully over twisted beams and shattered plating. The Talari child, Litel, he had whispered, clinging to her side. The ship had been torn apart by impact and fire. Everything was scorched and sharp, the air thick with the scent of ozone and burnt polymers. "There," Litel said hoarsely, pointing through a gap in the wreckage. Elise squeezed through a bent doorway, the metal edges scraping against her sleeves. Inside, the mother lay sprawled across a makeshift bed of thermal blankets and torn insulation, her body locked in violent spasms. "Sarianne." Elise knelt beside her, snapping open the medkit. A single glance told her this wasn't a simple injury. The woman's limbs jerked uncontrollably, her breathing was ragged, and foam flecked the corners of her mouth. Her skin, a pale lilac, was flushed, dark, and fevered, the muscles under it twitching like they had minds of their own. She started shaking 3 sunrises ago," Litel whispered, voice trembling. "Then the fever came. I tried to cool her, like the old story said, but—" "You did good," Elise said softly, glancing over the primitive setup. Wet cloths, an upturned power cell rigged as a heater. Smart for a kid. Smarter than some adults she knew. Elise pulled out a scanner and passed it over Sarianne's body. The device beeped uncertainly, struggling to interpret Talari physiology. "Unknown pathogen detected." It finally spat out. "Unknown. Great. Of course it's never easy," Elise muttered under her breath. She flipped open a sterile injector and prepped a dose of broad-spectrum antiviral agents. Risky. Human medicine could interact badly with alien biology, but without intervention, Sarianne was going to burn herself out from pure neurological overload. Litel clutched her sleeve as she worked. Will she wake up?" "I'm going to do everything I can," Elise said, voice steady. "But I need you to help me. Can you find water? Clean water?" Litel nodded fiercely and scrambled away. Elise focused on the mother. She injected the stabilizer carefully into a vein she hoped was similar enough to human anatomy. Then she pulled out cooling packs and started applying them to Sarianne's pulse points, trying to drag her core temperature down before her organs cooked themselves. Minutes dragged by. Sarianne's body kept fighting her, every muscle tense, spasming at random. Elise adjusted the woman's position to prevent choking, slipping a makeshift bite guard into her mouth. "Come on," Elise whispered. "Come back. Your kid needs you." A roar of engines outside broke her focus. Elise turned just in time to see a human dropship hovering nearby and 2 armed medics disembarking. Patel, her nurse, was in the lead, scowling. "You need to evacuate," Patel barked. "Command just declared this sector high risk for secondary attacks. We pull out now, or we get left behind." "I'm not leaving her," Elise snapped back. "She's stabilizing." Patel took a step forward, lowering his voice. "Rowan, she's not human. She's not our responsibility. Orders are clear." Elise stood, blood pounding in her ears. "She's a mother," Elise said, "and a child's begging for her life. That makes her my responsibility." Patel's gaze flicked to the small figure of Litel, who had returned clutching a battered canteen. He hesitated. "I'm staying," Elise said firmly. "If you want to report me, fine. If you want to help, give me an isolation pod from the dropship." Patel muttered a curse but turned and stalked back toward the ship. Elise exhaled slowly and turned back to her patient. Sarianne's spasms were starting to slow. Not much, but enough. The cooling packs were working, giving the antiviral time to spread. Litel knelt beside her, tiny hands trembling. "Is she better?" he asked, voice barely audible. Elise softened. She ruffled the child's short hair, careful not to break the fragile hope blooming in those black eyes. "She's fighting," Elise said. "Just like you." In the distance, the dropship engines flared again, an impatient warning. Elise ignored it. She had made a promise. And no force in this broken universe, not war, Not protocol, not even her own fear, was going to make or break it. The unbreakable ones. The hum of the dropship faded into the distance. They had left without her. Elise barely registered it. Her focus narrowed to Sarah Yin. The trembling lines of her body, the faint hitch of her breath, the fever still burning under her fragile skin. The cooling packs were helping, but not enough. The antiviral was too slow. And whatever disease this was, it didn't follow any pattern Elise knew. She grabbed her portable analyzer and punched up a blood sample reading. The screen filled with error codes. Incompatible molecular structure. Unknown pathogen. Critical degeneration of neural tissue. Her stomach twisted. The Talari's nervous system was disintegrating. Slowly but surely. Cooling her would only buy them hours at best. Littell sat cross-legged beside Sarah Yin, whispering songs in a lilting language the translator didn't catch. His small hands rested on his mother's convulsing arm, trying to soothe her. Elise swallowed hard. In her mind, she heard another voice, a memory, sharp as broken glass. "We have to move on, Elise. We can't save everyone." That had been the triage officer's last words the day her mother died, left in a rubble-filled evacuation zone while others, more valuable lives, were rushed to safety. She shook her head violently, forcing the memory down. Not today. Not again. She dug through her kit, pulling out an old emergency med rig, an injection sequencer designed for battlefield improvisation. It wasn't built for aliens, but it could deliver multiple treatments at once if she could figure out what combination might help. Human bodies were tough, adaptive, and humanity's strength had never been in following rules. It had been in breaking them when survival demanded it. "All right," she muttered. "Let's see if stubbornness still counts for something." Working fast, she drew up a cocktail, a nerve stabilizer stolen from trauma protocols, a synthetic antiviral base stripped of human markers to avoid rejection, and a plasma-derived electrolyte booster to try and stabilize Sorayan's failing cells. All experimental, all reckless, but better than doing nothing. Littell watched silently, trust written all over his thin, exhausted face. "You're brave," Elise told him, loading the sequencer. "Your mom's lucky to have you." Littell blinked up at her. "Talari say, braveness is the last light, when everything else is dark." Elise smiled grimly. "Humans say something similar. We say we don't quit, no matter how bad it gets." Littell tilted his head. "You are one of the unbreakable." Elise paused. Unbreakable. Not invincible. Not perfect. Just refusing to fall apart when everything else did. She nodded once. "Yeah, I guess I am." And right now, this mother needed someone unbreakable in her corner. She pressed the sequencer to Sorayan's neck and triggered the injection. For a long, terrible moment, nothing happened. Then Sarah Yin jerked. Not a seizure, but a full-body shudder. Elise grabbed her shoulders, steadying her as the convulsions lessened, the tension in her limbs bleeding away. Littell gasped. The monitors beeped wildly, then settled. Sorayan's breathing deepened, slowed. The spasms stopped. Her eyes fluttered beneath closed lids. It wasn't a cure, but it was a fighting chance. Elise sagged back, heart pounding. She wiped sweat from her forehead and glanced at Littell. "She's stable for now." Littell burst into tears, silent, relieved sobs that shook his whole, small body. He flung himself into Elise's arms, and for a second, all the noise, all the war, all the divisions between human and alien melted away. There was just a child clinging to hope, and a medic who refused to walk away. When Littell finally pulled back, wiping his face awkwardly, Elise ruffled his hair again. "She'll need real care," Elise said, glancing around at the ruined landscape. "A hospital. Machines better than this junk I've got. Can you take us?" Littell asked, voice trembling. Elise hesitated. Officially, Talari weren't authorized for human medical facilities. Officially, the right answer was to call in and wait. But official rules had already left this mother to die once. Elise zipped up her medkit and slung it over her shoulder. "Yeah," she said. "I'll get you there. Whatever it takes." In the distance, storm clouds loomed, a fresh front of danger. But Elise stood firm, shielding Littell with her body as she plotted a path back through the wreckage. The unbreakable ones didn't run from storms. They walked into them. Home is where hope lives. The rain came in hard sheets, stinging Elise's face as she fought the skimmer's controls. Littell huddled against her back, arms locked around her waist, the unconscious Sarian cradled between them in the emergency sling. Visibility dropped to near zero. Every few seconds, lightning forked across the ruined landscape, throwing wrecked ships and shattered hills into brief, terrible clarity. They were close. Elise could feel it. Her visor pinged a low-priority signal, the faint beacon of Field Hospital Theta. A converted freighter rigged to the ground, battered but still operational. She leaned into the throttle. They shot through the last ridge of broken stone, and the hospital rose before them, a massive, scarred hulk, glowing faintly against the dark. A voice barked over comms. Unknown skimmer approaching. Identify immediately or we fire. Elise slapped the comms panel. This is Dr. Elise Rowan. I have 2 critical patients, 1 non-human. Stand down your guns or lose 2 lives. There was a pause. Then, proceed to Dock 3. Weapons hold. The landing was rough, the skimmer skidding sideways on slick ferrocrete. Elise killed the engine, scooped up Saran's limp form, and ran. Littell sprinted at her side, small legs struggling to keep pace. Inside, the hospital was chaos. Wounded packed into every corner, medics shouting, automated drones struggling to keep up with the endless demands. It smelled of antiseptic and desperation. A triage officer rushed up. His eyes widened at the sight of Sarian. You brought an alien here? He barked. Protocol. Override it, Elise snapped. She's stable, but deteriorating. She needs neurorepair and pathogen isolation, stat. The officer hesitated. Littell stepped forward, his small hand reaching up to touch the officer's sleeve. Please, he whispered. She's my mom. Something cracked behind the man's hard eyes. He looked at Elise, then at the child. He nodded once, sharply. Isolation Bay 4. Move. A team peeled off instantly, snapping a grav stretcher under Sarian and whisking her away. Elise followed until they slammed the door shut, a bright yellow quarantine field snapping into place. And then, there was nothing to do but wait. She sank into a bench, the weight of exhaustion finally dragging her down. Littell climbed up beside her, silent, shivering slightly. You did good, kid, Elise murmured, wrapping an arm around him. You got her here. You saved her. Littell leaned against her, too tired even to speak. Time blurred. Nurses came and went, for bags rattled. Alarms sounded distant and unimportant. Elise kept her gaze locked on the isolation window, willing Sarian to fight as fiercely as her son had. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, a doctor stepped out, pulling off his gloves. She stabilized, he said simply. Neural degradation halted. She's breathing on her own. She's going to make it. Elise exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her vision blurred. Rain, exhaustion, maybe tears. Littell was already on his feet, face alight with hope so bright it hurt to look at. Can I see her? He asked. The doctor hesitated, then smiled. Just for a minute. Littell bolted through the doors, disappearing into the isolation ward. Elise stayed where she was. Her body ached. Every muscle screamed for rest. But her heart, her stubborn, human heart, felt light. Patel approached, a steaming cup of something vaguely resembling coffee in his hand. He offered it wordlessly. Elise took it. I filed a report, Patel said after a moment. Said you made a judgment call under extreme duress. Command's not happy. Elise sipped the terrible coffee. Are they sending me home? Maybe, he said. Then, softer, maybe not. They stood there in silence, watching as Littell pressed his tiny forehead against the glass of the isolation bay, his mother's hand twitching weakly in response. You broke a lot of rules today, Patel said finally. Elise shrugged. Rules didn't save my mother. They weren't going to save his. Patel didn't argue. Outside, the storm raged on. But in here, at least for one family, the worst had passed. Elise drained the cup and set it aside. There would be consequences. There always were. But right now, right here, there was life. There was hope. And that was worth every risk.